Hello, Lionesses. Welcome to the Unstoppable Lioness Show. I am one of your hosts. I'm Dr. Coylette Dames, and I'm absolutely positively thrilled to be joining with you today. I don't know if it's morning, noon, or night in your atmosphere, but whatever time it is the right time for you to tune in to the Unstoppable Lionesses Show. We have a phenomenal show planned for you today. I have two queen lionesses that will come up and share with you in just a little bit, but I want to kick the show off talking about esteem and having balance in our esteem. And sometimes we miss the mark when we start to look at how we esteem ourselves. All right. This is not about how others esteem you or how others see you, but it's about how you see yourself. How do you react to what the image of yourself is when you see the reflection of yourself? And the reflection of you is not always caught in the mirror. Sometimes the reflection of you is caught up in how you treat others and how you allow others to treat you. It is vitally important that you understand that there is a balance in your esteem. There is a balance on how you perceive your worth and your being. All right. We were created to be human beings. And in that creation, there is a balance that God placed within us so that we can flow in Him. And as unstoppable lionesses, we have to find that balance. So if you devalue yourself, if you have low self-esteem, then you don't see the worth that you possess. And we all have greatness within us. God has created each and every one of us with greatness, and He desires us to understand and recognize just how valuable we are. And we should always be walking in that place of our royalty. A lot of times people are not going to understand the fact that you are regal, the fact that you are royalty. I've been watching and drawn to a lot of lion and lionesses videos lately that just kind of pop up in my feed on YouTube. And the one thing that I have seen is that the lioness is always walking in her royalty. She carries herself in a majestic way. She teaches her cubs to do the same, and she don't take no mess off of the lions either. It is really, really amusing to me to see how the lions are so playful with the lionesses, and the lionesses let the lion know if it wants to play or not. And it's amazing. But at the same time, the lionesses respect their lions. I saw a clip one day where they had put this barrier, this kind of electric fence type of a barrier in a compound to keep the lions in a certain area. And as they matured, they wanted them to learn to venture out so they could learn to hunt in a more atmosphere that was conducive to the wild. And because they had kept hitting this barrier with this electric fence, they wouldn't go any farther. The lion had not matured fully into his royalty and the king that he was, but the lionesses were still very mindful of who he was. And finally, the two lionesses, they kept pacing, and one of them decided to take that leap. Excuse me. And walked on the other side of where the barrier would be because it was no longer stopping her. And she walked, and they had dropped a prey for them, a wild buck for them to feast on, to get them used to going over into this other area. Once she went over there, her lioness sister decided, well, I'm going to join her and I'm going to see if it's okay as well. They both were over there. There was the food waiting on them and ready to be devoured, but they didn't. Excuse me. Instead, they took and they picked up the food and brought it back to the lion to let the lion feast with them. So even in their majesticness, even in their knowing their worth and knowing who they were, they still honored the lion. This is important because we can become too esteemed, and our high esteem will cause us to look down on others. The lionesses could have said, hey, I've got mine, I'm gonna eat mine, but they didn't. They had value for that lion, even though he had not come into his full maturity. We have got to understand that there has got to be a balance in us as we deal with people. Number one, you will never ever accept devaluing of yourself when you recognize and understand just how valuable you are. And that means that you yourself will not devalue you either. You will not look down on others when you understand the balance of who God created you to be, because God Almighty never looks down on you. He looks at you with high esteem. He trusts in you, what he placed in you, that you would utilize it to the full extent of what he gave you. He never looks down on you, even in your sin, even in your mess. God still honors you. Now that's incredible, because we as humans, we don't honor other people in their mess, especially in the body of Christ. Man, we eat our own for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because we think just because we haven't fallen prey to whatever our brother or our sister is walking in, then we can hold a head up high. Don't ever forget where you came from. Don't ever forget where you could also fall back down to. Always recognize and understand the mercy and the grace that God has upon your life. He created you, especially you lionesses. He created us, womankind, in a very, very majestic way. He created us to walk in the regal stature. There is nothing more beautiful than a woman who knows her worth when she is walking and speaking and honoring who she is. I'll never forget that. I had Ramona Jan on the show last week, and it is, in fact, Woman Thrive Media. This is her network. But she had to come to a place just recently where she became unapologetic for the greatness that was within her. She said that she shared on the show that she was at a retreat. In fact, it was her retreat. She didn't say that, but I happen to know her retreat. And they were doing this session on what is the limiting thoughts that you have about yourself that nobody knows you think about yourself. Those limiting thoughts, I'm saying this to you, those limiting thoughts will cause you to keep yourself in a low self-esteem, because you won't honor the greatness that God has placed within you. And she said, out of her mouth came, I think I'm boring. That is the thought pattern that had governed her actions for years. Even though she puts on these global summits, she has a global magazine, she's put in 4 series of a global book, she's got this global network, television network, but in the recesses of her mind, she still thought she was boring, because somebody had spoken something to her that had resonated within her years ago, and she never got beyond it, even with the greatness of what she was doing currently. I want you to take a thought in that. Is there something that's still in the recesses of your mind that's causing you to walk in low self-esteem? Or are you overcompensating because of your insecurity and walking in a superiority place? Because most people that think themselves superior, there is an low self-esteem, there is an insecurity that's lingering underneath that is causing them to overcompensate. This is truth. This is true. Even with narcissistic people, because narcissism is not limited just to men. There are narcissistic women too. And they're compensating for something that they have not risen up above and come to understand is a something in the back of their mind causing them to think themselves less than what they should. And so, because they think themselves less because of this, they feel that they need to overcompensate and look more superior than anybody else. Don't let that be your stead. Don't let that be your mindset. You are an unstoppable lioness. You are regal and majestic, and God has created you in such an incredibly fascinating way so that you can be the womb to birth forth much. It's not just a womb of birthing forth children. It's a womb of birthing forth ideas. It's a womb of birthing forth businesses. It's a womb of birthing forth encouragement in the lives of others. So your homework from today's broadcast is to take a little inventory of your mindset, of your heart, and find out what your esteem level is. Do you have balance in it? Or are you devaluing yourself? Or are you overcompensating? That's your homework. Think about it, because we want you to be nothing short of unstoppable. And that unbalance in your esteem can cause a hiccup in your success. Okay. All right. I'm excited. I get to bring up one of the queens and my co-host to share with you in this segment. Hey, Miss Taffany.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
I am incredible. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for asking.
Good, good. Well, ma'am, the flow is all yours.
Well, hello, women. I am super excited to share with you on today about your story matters. You know, a lot of times we think of things that we go through as just being our own personal struggle. And I found that to be so true with people that I work with as well as myself. But when I looked back over the success that I've had, it has all been from me sharing parts of my story. Because we know that even the enemy is overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. One of the major things that I found, especially with leaders, is we think sometimes that a lot of things that we struggle in are not important. But I'm going to tell you something. There are times when I have had to borrow my sister's faith to get through some situations that I was facing at the particular time. And so when I started to think about that and really digging deep of what it means to tell your story, some parts of our story we feel like are very important, whereas other parts we feel like are not important. So how do you go about figuring out or navigating what to share and what not to share? So I'm going to give you 5 points of what you might do when it comes to being able to share your story. Sharing your story is not just about airing your dirty laundry or making someone feel sorry or saying, oh, look at me. It's really about walking through a journey of healing most of the time and being able to articulate in such a way that is a face of hope to other people. So, number one, the first thing that we should do when it comes to telling our story, and that is whether we're writing it in a book, an ebook, a blog space, if we're speaking it from a stage, if we're doing a short documentary, or if we're writing curriculum based on our experiences, it's all the same technique. The first thing is identifying your who. Who is it that you're speaking with? Who is it that you're speaking to? The second thing is what is it that you want to see accomplished by what it is that you are sharing with them? What do you think the outcome is? What was the outcome for you? And how is that going to change their life? The third thing is being able to identify each one of the senses and speaking in a sensory type space, helping them to be able to see from how you're articulating or hear or feel, or even something that they may be able to touch. The fourth thing is after we've done all of those things, where are you going to put it? Where are your people at? Is this something that you're going to put on social media? Or is this something that you're going to have an in-person event? Or if you're going to do something virtually? And the fifth thing is how to market those things. All of those things are super important when it comes to telling your story. What is the theme? What is it that you're going to talk about that's going to help impact the lives of those that you would speak with? I remember when I first started in the space of telling my story, it was a little difficult because there were some spaces of shame and guilt that were attached to the certain part of my story that I felt would impact the congregation or the audience that I was speaking to. At that time, I was speaking to women who had either dealt with or were in the dealing with healing from domestic violence. That's part of my story. So even in that, being careful to not re-traumatize in how we articulate what it is. So being that I knew I was speaking to those people, I had to remember what that felt like sitting in that state when I was first coming out of it, when I was still in it, and someone was trying to explain to me that I was in a space dealing with narcissism. I know my sister talked about narcissism before, but that was my story. That was part of my story. And I can tell you, sharing that part of my story, I was able to see afterwards how that seed that was planted in how I articulated the story was able to then help other people either leave abusive situations, identify that they still needed some healing, or be able to talk to that person that was in the narcissist and see if there was something that they could do as far as counseling or coaching. So when we understand who our target audience is, the way we speak it is going to be different. If I was speaking to a group of people that was just making them aware of, if it was an awareness thing, then I would speak to them differently than a person that's sitting in the seat of what it is that we're going through at that particular time. So identifying your audience, understanding what the desire is of what the outcome is. There again, are we bringing awareness? Are we talking to police officers of how to be able to identify body language whenever a woman is or a man? Because domestic violence goes both ways. Just as my sister said, narcissists are female and male. It is truly a space that we are able to tell our story in such a way, using parts of our story, the good parts and the bad parts, in a way that's able to help move a person forward in their understanding, in their acknowledgement, and then in whatever the solution might be. When it comes to what part of the story we tell, are we telling the part when we first realized that we were in a bad situation? Are we telling the part of when we were in the process of trying to make a solution? Or are we telling the part of the healing and what happened afterwards? Each one of those things are necessary to go through when we start looking at how we tell our story for ultimate impact. Our desires are not just to have there again information, but give the information in a communicative way so that there is an application of whatever tools you're giving or tips you're giving in that situation so that there can be true transformation and a solution-based situation afterwards. Now, I can tell you, telling my story has brought me to a space of being a best-selling author. It's brought me to the space of speaking on international and domestic stages. It's also brought me to the place of being a award-winning filmmaker. It's brought me to a space of being able to use this in a coaching program. It's brought me to the spaces of being able to use that in mentorship. All of those things are spaces of creating ultimate and optimal impact in a way that it feeds you because you're walking in purpose, and it also feeds the people that you have been entrusted to speak to at that time. When it comes to where those people are, if we're speaking to, say, we're gonna people who are dealing with addiction, for example, if that may be part of your story, where would those people be? A lot of times they will be in halfway houses or treatment centers. Sometimes they may be in hospitals. Sometimes they may be on social media and they're expressing their need to experience healing. So where do we find those people, and how do we get our information out there? Some people use webinars, some people use master classes, some people do use blogs and Facebook and all of those other things in order to get to the people that they need to get to, based on what their target audience is and where they're at in their process. So we need to take into consideration all of those things when we're talking about telling our story, because there again, your story matters. There are so many great stories out there that have yet to be told. I remember meeting my dad when I was 30 years old. My dad was only 13 when they got pregnant with me, 14 when I was born. And I remember meeting him and telling him a little bit about my life, things that he didn't know because he wasn't in my life growing up. He wasn't a part of that. And I remember telling him about some of the challenges and some of the highlights and the lowlights of what it was that I had gone through. And he says, "Well, have you written about it?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I journal all the time." He says, "Well, journaling is great, but that is for you. What about what is for other people? Your heart, there could truly be healing sitting on your hard drive of people that are out there that are hurting right now." And he said to me, "How would you know who Martin Luther King is? How would you know who created the light bulb? How would you know who Jesus is, even had it not been written, had it not been passed down, had the story not been told?" Each one of us have transformational stories inside of us. And we get the opportunity, especially women like us, right? Women who are in leadership positions, women who are entrepreneurs, women who are thought leaders, who are trailblazers, who are lionesses, unstoppable lionesses. We have those stories that could truly transform someone else's life. And we get the opportunity to bring that forth by telling those stories. Now, once you have your story kind of laid out in your little outline, then you can do things like webinars or master classes to help other people be able to tell their story. Telling your story is so important, especially in today's society. There are people that are looking for authenticity. They're looking for transparency. They're looking for someone that they can look at and say, wow, if it happened for her, it can happen for me too. You can be a face of hope for other people. And then moving on, how can you monetize it? Like I said, there are those spaces where you can coach people. You can also do retreats. You can also do, I love retreats. That's my favorite thing to do. Speaking of retreats, I love it. You can also take that and turn it into a digital product with ebooks, with audiobooks. These are all ways that you can impact not just your life monetarily, but other people's lives as well. I invite you to take the time to sit down and kind of map out what your story looks like, and then do an outline. And we've got this neat little thing called ChatGPT or AI that can help us even construct just the chapters that we may write in our book or tell from a stage. Remember, God has given you a story, and you can share that story with other people from a space of healing now. And you can help be a face of hope to those that may not be where you are. I remember wishing there was someone that could tell me how to walk through going through a divorce. That was part of my story. And now I get a chance to write about Would You Marry You? The preparation that comes in relationship readiness. Your story matters. Be a face of hope to others.
So wonderful, so important. Our story is wow, it's how people survive. It's how we survive. I don't know about you, but in journaling and writing different things in my life, it was literally like my therapy.
Yeah.
Putting it down on the paper, it was my therapy. So yeah, it's very important. I thank you, ma'am. I thank you, thank
You.
you. All right, let's get our next queen up here, Queen Patsy Austin, our next unstoppable lioness that is all prepared to come and share with you. So go ahead and let us hear you roar, my love. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Patsy Austin, and as it says on the screen, I am the founder of KLA, which is a Key Leadership Associates. I am a leadership ambassador, and I also am one of the co-founders or co-creators of Queen, which is Kingdom Women Empowernet. And we specifically talk about digital marketing and how to help and digital products and how to help people thrive in that space. So Taffany and I are two of the co-creators of that particular space. I just wanted to drop that link. You can go over to queennetwork.com or queenempower.com. Sorry, queenempower.com. So anyway, there's that. I do want to say that Dr. Coylette and Taffany both stopped all over the stuff that I was going to talk about today. So apparently, this is something that needs to be talked about. Whenever last week I was watching the video from the Lioness, Unstoppable Lionesses. Sorry, I had a stumble moment there. Unstoppable Lionesses, and the just how Dr. Coylette was talking about sharing her experience about having to fight voices in her head of people who were no longer part of her life, but those voices and the words were still there. And then Taffany was talking about authenticity and how that is so important in the story that we tell. And it's also important about in the narrative that other people have about us and that we also have about other people. Can I give you a for instance? For instance, back in college, I was a music major. And part of my other life, my sister, my husband, and I, we have a group and we sing and play instruments and do all kinds of fun stuff on stage. But back in college, I helped pay my way through college by being in band and in choir. And I was very, very shy. Dr. Coylette said something earlier about overcompensating because of low self-esteem. And that's exactly what I did. I walked into every room with my head held high because I was like, ain't nobody going to know how scared I am. Because in my experience, whenever people smelled fear, especially peers or people in authority, they would attack you, they would belittle you, they would put you down. So I walked into every room in that college as if I owned the room. I didn't really talk to anyone. And because of that, I got the reputation as a snob, stuck up, a B word, all these things. And that wasn't me. That was not my motive. That was not my heart. That wasn't anything that had to do with me, but that's how people perceived me. Until one day, one of the people I had gotten over to know in the summer did something crazy. He grabbed my instrument and handed it to a friend and then picked me up. I was a little tiny thing then, picked me up, threw me over his shoulder, and started carrying me back to the band hall. Everyone was expecting me to explode on him because this is the dialogue that they had in their head about me. This is what they were thinking that I was, the exploding prima donna, prissy person. He knew different. He had gotten to know the real me. He had gotten to know the sassy, weird, wacky sense of humor me, right? So whenever he threw me over his shoulder and started taking me to the band hall, I died laughing. I was laughing so hard I couldn't even fight. It was so hilarious to me that he would do this. And because people saw a different side to me, they rewrote the narrative in their mind. And I later found out what the original narrative was because I actually got good friends
because that one young man decided he was tired of everyone else having the wrong thoughts about me. So many times we do the same thing. We do the same thing, or other people do the same thing to us. They write narratives based upon what they see, and they don't dig deeper. It's really hurtful sometimes, isn't it? It really is. Or we write narratives on people based on what we see, based upon, let me say this. Simon Sinek says every leader creates a narrative of people, mostly as underperformers. It happens to everyone. There is not a single person that I am aware of that this hasn't happened to and in. So once we do that, then we start correcting every minor infraction that we see that person do. And we end up destroying their confidence. I'm going to go back to what Dr. Coylette said last week about having to fight the voices in her head of people who weren't even in her life anymore. I realized last summer that I was doing exactly that. That every time I created a video, every time I created a course, every time I got up to speak, I was walking on eggshells because I was still speaking to those people who were no longer in my life, who no longer had input. I was speaking to them as if they still had influence in my life. Once I got that knowledge, I was able to stop. I was able to go, oh, if I've actually cut their opinion of me out of my life so that I can grow and go forward, why do I allow them to be even part of the audience that I'm speaking to in my mind? Because we all have an audience in our mind. I have an audience that I'm speaking to right now. And you are amazing. You are awesome. And you want to learn and grow and be the very best person that you can be. But why would I allow that person who had an unflattering opinion, a narrative of me that was not correct, to be the person who I was talking to? So I want to challenge you as we move forward that you can be more than what you are right now if you allow yourself to become more authentically you. You will be a better leader, you will be a better person, and more people will get to see your heart.
Wow, amazing. Can I just clap? I am just so blown away by both of you today. Seriously. I mean, it was just like God said, okay, here's the narrative, and I want you guys just to go out and speak on it. You know, it's like people would never know that we never discussed what we're talking about prior to the show. So nobody knows what the other person is going to say prior to the show. And this is just so amazing. It is so amazing that it was like this fine weaving job that God was orchestrating in all of our lives. I love that. I love that. It is so important that our stories are told, you know. And Tiffany, you brought that point home so beautifully. You
Yes.
really, really did, because others learn from it. I would have never imagined Patsy being shy.
I got over it.
However, I understand her story. I understand where she's coming from, because likewise, people see me in a whole different light. They see Taffy in a whole different light. People perceive what they want to see. And if they don't understand what they see, they'll make stuff up. I've learned that over the years. So it's like, that's why we've got to get rid of all of these negative connotations that just keep playing over and over in our mind. Again, from people that we don't even know anymore. How many people we haven't seen in umpteen years? You know, when you get seasoned, I'm the most seasoned here, but when you get seasoned like us, it's like somebody can come up and tell you you hurt their feelings 40 years ago, and you'd be like, I don't even know who you are. You know, it's like, seriously, but yet still we carry all of that stuff around with us. And we've got to learn to release it. We've definitely got to learn to release it. We've got to learn to rise up above it and recognize that if it's not who you are, don't answer to it. You know, that's something that my pastor tells us all the time. Don't answer to who you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
If I said, Sally, tell me something, you're both going to stand there and look at me like, okay, either she's drinking or delusional or who's Sally? Like, because neither one of you are Sally.
No. It's
And so
true.
yes, we have to get to that place. So let me ask you, Tiffany, how did telling your story help you to rise above the things and the thoughts that people had left in your mind?
So for me, it was such a long process. And you know, some people it happens immediately, but for me, it did not, because there had been seed planted and then it had been watered by several people over the years by the time I started. So what happened is being able to go in and identify the lie that I believed based on that thing. And once I recognized the lie that I believed, then I was able to go to my Father God and say, you know, I believe that I was abandoned. Now there's some truth to that. I mean, I was kind of abandoned, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I still walked into every room expecting to be rejected. So by me feeling like I wasn't worthy, I attempted to over excel, become a perfectionist even. But when I was able to identify the lie, then I was saying, I choose to disown this lie, because the truth of what God showed me about me was, and then I was able to verbalize that. And so it was truly identifying lies. And as we identify the lie, then we can go to the truth, not everybody else's truth, but we can go to the truth and we can get that information. And every time that lie attempts to come back, that I can speak the truth of God's word over that and say, I have disowned that lie. That is not who I am. I am whatever the truth is. And from there, I was able to heal. And so as we're understanding who we are, it helps us to heal and be able to help other people heal in the process. So it was a constant process. That's why I tell people, my first book, it took me 7 years to write my first book. And then I wrote 6 books in 6 months. You know what I'm saying? Not immediately behind, but after that, because now I know who I am. I can speak from my authentic voice, because I'm telling my story from a place of healing and wholeness. I'm not bleeding on people and myself. I had to stop in a lot of those places when it came to telling my story and go through a healing process. Identify the emotion, and it was legitimate. I can be angry. It's okay. Just don't stay that way. So that was how I was able to rise up from places of telling my story.
That's excellent. Your experience, Patsy, of people perceiving you differently than who you were, how does that help you now as you're training leaders?
Well, a lot of times we can do the give and take thing, where we see ourselves as one thing, but other people see us as another. And once we own that truth that not everyone sees us as we truly are, then we can also embrace the truth that we're not seeing everyone else as they truly are. So once we understand that, when we have this whole narrative of an underperformer, that maybe that person is not an underperformer. Maybe that's the viewpoint that we see them as, but what they really are is someone who is facing challenges that they need help overcoming. That there's someone who is walking around on broken legs and they really need some support. They're really someone who is dealing with a confidence issue, and you see inside of them what they can actually be and do, but they don't see that side of themselves. So once we own the fact that other people don't see us as who we truly are, and our motives get misaligned, by other people, they think that our motives are not exactly what they really are, then we can understand that we might have a tendency to do the same to other people, and to redirect our thought processes to be more positive and patterned more after how God sees us, and then we can see other people the same way. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. The word teaches us to do unto others as we would have them do unto ourselves. We also, you just so eloquently put it, we have to see others, because we have a tendency to see others through our jaded eyes. How we see ourselves is how we perceive others.
Yes.
If you find a person that is always negative, that's how they're seeing themselves. So therefore, everything you do is going to be a negative.
So up here in Tennessee, where Taffany and I live, the fall colors have just started petering out. And I was wearing sunglasses outside one day because the sun gets still pretty bright, right? And I was like, I have never seen that color of orange on that tree. Why is that tree so weirdly colored this year? And my husband says, take your sunglasses off, darling. And I said, oh, a lot of times we view things through lenses that we don't even know that we're wearing. And so we're not seeing what is true and is correct and what is right. We're seeing detail, but the color is a little off. And we don't even realize that the lenses, like Taffany was saying earlier, that the lenses of hurt and the lenses of disillusionment and the lenses of abandonment, or like I was, fear of people, those types of things can color our view of what people are doing, what they're going through, and how we actually perceive our experiences with them.
That's awesome. That is powerful. Well, our motto here on the show is an empowered woman empowers the world.
Yes.
Seriously. If we are empowered with inside ourselves, it's kind of like the analogy that rocks the cradle rules the world, because we can literally speak that empowerment into the generations, and it's so powerful. I need both of you ladies in the 2 minutes that we have left to tell everybody how you can be found and give just a quick synopsis about Queen. Taffany, you go first.
Yeah, so I can be found on all social networks at Taffany Williams. My name is, there's not very many Taffany's out there, so you can find me there. But more so than anything, Queen is an amazing community of women who have come together with a common goal of empowering each other, collaboration and community, not comparison or competition, truly, truly leaning on one another when we need help, and being able to show people what it is that we bring to the table that can help bring their true as well. And so we are a subscription-based business. It's digital marketing. We have PLR, which is private label rights, to help you to get your stuff out there quickly. And we have the joy of having Dr. Colette put a training in of her amazing faith biz so that we can utilize AI to leverage moving things forward faster, giving us the bones so we can come and put the meat and the muscle and the protein and all on it and get our stuff out there quicker. And there is, by it being subscription based, you can also have an affiliate link that will give you 30 to 40%, depending on what kind of products we're doing at that time, to help you have another stream of income. So that's kind of what Queen is
Awesome.
about.
Quickly, Patsy, who are you? Where are you?
So my husband and I have an umbrella company called Alston Enterprises, and our website is called alstonent.com. So that's alstonent.com. And the link to everything that we have there, all of our socials, all of our companies, everything that we do is there. So go and find that.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. This has been phenomenal. We are out of time. Have a great day, everybody.